Anila, over to you for the
Thank you,
section.
Thomas. Thank you so much. So I will start because the last panel will be talk about the reflection of the day, and we want to really look into in the future, but to come up with the follows actions to see. And we have Sarah who gonna present a report which can help us to navigate that future planning. Sarah, are you ready? Okay, over to you, Sarah, please.
Is it on? Yes, yes. Right, sorry for that, and also sorry for being 1 minute late. So if we pull up the slides, maybe, great. Firstly, I guess, welcome all together, as the Germans say. I'm Sarah Rosenberg-Janssen. I'm one of the senior advisors with the GPA, and I also work for the University of Oxford. And I'm here to launch the State of the Humanitarian Energy Sector 2022 report. I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that it's been an amazing, extremely intensive effort over the past 6 months by many colleagues online and in the room, and I just wanted to acknowledge that and everybody's work and support. Great, I see some slides. So if we jump to the next one, yep, and maybe even the one after that, perfect. So this has really been a truly collective effort, and each of the chapters has been co-authored by the leading institutions in the sector, including GPA steering group members. Thanks especially to my colleague Dr. Hajar Al-Kado, who is the co-author of this report. Together we conducted many interviews, we did a lot of case study analysis, and we really started to dig into some of the intellectual elements of the sector, as well as the practical advice and practical programming that is happening. The report is really a first of its kind analysis. We hope to repeat it roughly every 3 years with maybe a short yearly update. For example, in 2025, we'd like to use that as a moment to reflect on global progress towards SDG 7 for displaced people. And that's already, coming in 3 years' time. So we go next slide, please. It's a first of its kind report in more than one way. It's also an example of inclusivity. Refugee voices and opinions are included throughout the report. Our refugee colleagues, 2 of whom are on the panel today, co-authored the chapters, Joelle for chapter 1 and David for chapter 7, and I thank them very much for that. As Anila really highlighted earlier on, meaningful participation in this sector means much more than being in the room. It means collaborative working, it means hiring refugees and displaced people, it means co-development and co-delivery of projects, it means co-authorship, and this report hopefully is an example of that. On the slide you will see examples of quotes of the report. Sorry, the previous one. Yeah, this one. Examples of quotes from people that are included in the report showing why energy is important, how it matters to them, and that refugees and displaced people are experts on the energy that they need in their own lives. So I pause there to let you read the slide, which has disappeared, but feel free afterwards. So within the report, really there are 350 pages of key messages. We tried to summarize in one slide. For me, the main message of the report is that there are a significant number of sustainable energy projects and investments. However, as Owen's presentation earlier highlighted, this is not enough to keep pace with the rate of displacement. 94% of displaced people don't have access to electricity, and 81% are reliant on firewood and charcoal for cooking. These are terrible statistics. And despite all our progress and all our effort in the sector, we are barely keeping pace. Without radical change, we will not achieve SDG 7 in displacement context by 2030, or indeed in the foreseeable future. I don't really need to do the rest of my presentation because that's all you need to hear, but I will. So on to the next slide. I just wanted to give you a little bit of a brief background on each of the chapters and some of the key things we're saying within them. While chapter 1 really outlines the core issues and definitions within the humanitarian energy sector, chapter 2 presents an analysis of the forms of governance and coordination that are currently present. The chapter highlights the sort of soft coordination and leadership happening. It's co-authored by Chatham House, who are an expert on understanding the different forms of governance and the different political modalities. One of the things we talk about in the chapter is how much action has been galvanized by GPA partners, many of whom are in this room, who are driving forward collective action within the sector, and how important and vital partnerships are to actually make change happen. If we go to the next slide. There are a number of recommendations coming out of the report on governance and coordination. The key one is really how important it is to collaborate and work together, and to do that properly. Apply for funding together, start at the co-design phase, really work things through, and don't just treat especially energy sector partners as people to bring on afterwards as consultants, but involve them in the beginning. The other key thing I'd like to talk about is publicly sharing results. We heard a lot of questions from the floor today to the panelists of the different panels. Where is this information available? Have you publicly shared your data? Where can I get more information? So publicly sharing information is really, really vital. An example of the public sharing of information is available on the Energypedia Humanitarian Energy website, which one of our colleagues presented so beautifully earlier on. If we go to the next slide on policy. Chapter 3. Yes, it's taking a minute to load. Chapter 3 covers policy and advocacy and is co-authored by SE4ALL and IOM. Other slides, going forward one, hopefully. The Chapter 3 really presents a powerful case study analysis on progressive national policies and how those are supporting refugee inclusion. A key example of that, and we just heard about that in the panel downstairs, is the GIZ SERP process in Uganda that has been supported by so many parties in Uganda to really drive these initiatives forward. Chapter 3 also presents the results presented by Owen Grafman from Chatham House earlier on the model update with these powerful numbers that we've seen come out of this conference. And there's a lot more detail in that chapter on the very brief information that we've presented today. The key recommendations, next slide, from Chapter 3 are really about the need for both national governments and international organisations to set measurable targets and raise ambitions. It's one of our key challenges, I think, of our lifetimes to support governments in their work. And we heard from the government of Uganda and the government of Kenya on the previous panel about how much they are trying and how challenging it can be to work in these situations. The inclusivity of refugees and IDPs and the communities who host them is such an important issue. We go to the next slide. Chapter 4 outlines the funding and financing as co-authored by GIZ and Practical Action, and it presents the new modes of innovative financing and how we can support the different elements of the sector in providing renewable and sustainable solution. It really highlights key work by the NRC and GPA on blended finance and market-based approaches, including those delivered by the Renewable Energy for Refugees project, implemented by Practical Action and UNHCR and funded by IKEA Foundation. Next slide. Overwhelmingly, the recommendations from Chapter 4 focus on the issue of increasing donor funding and the need for well-planned initiatives that support value for money. So not just throwing money at the problem, but really knowing how that money is going to be spent. Next slide. Chapter 5, one of my favourite chapters, focuses on delivery and capacity building. It's co-authored by Mercy Corps and NORCAP, and I'd really like to acknowledge the work of WFP and our colleague Rafaela Blanca, who sadly couldn't be here today with us, but her leadership in this area is particularly important. Chapter 5 really outlines the types of capacity needed and the shortage within the sector. We estimate that there are 3,000 people that are needed for the sector, so 3,000 humanitarian energy specialists. And if you think that that is too large a number, there's 200 people in the room today and there are another 800 online. That is already 1,000 people. And we're not achieving what we should be, as the numbers earlier showed. Examples of well-resourced programs are also included within the chapter, including the NORCAP Energy Roster, which is a really fantastic program, and UNHCR's energy programming in Bangladesh, which is also well-resourced and doing fantastic things. Next slide. The Chapter 5 recommendations focus on the urgent needs to increase capacity and support new delivery models. For example, supporting the Energy Delivery Model EDM program that is run by the WFP and GPA with Norwegian funding. Chapter 6, if we go one slide further, yeah. Chapter 6 presents the picture on data and evidence. It's co-authored by Loughborough and the MEX program and the University of Oxford. And as all of you who have heard me speak before will know, high-quality data is absolutely essential to understand what progress, if any, is being made. And the chapter really highlights the great work done by IOM, as presented earlier by Inese, and supported by NORCAP. Next slide. So the two key recommendations on data that I'd like to draw your attention to. Firstly, core funding is essential to develop a global baseline. And secondly, we need to invest in new research. If there are any donors in the room, please invest in new research. Next slide. Chapter 7, I'm nearly done, discusses the interplay of climate action and decarbonisation. It's co-authored by Imperial College London and UNDP. And the chapter notes that emissions from UN energy sources are a substantial source of pollution, and that it is very important for international commitments, for example, the UNHCR climate strategy, to support change. But those need to be matched by institutional action and concrete partnerships in order to deliver. Next slide, please. Chapter 7 really reinforces this message that to address the global climate crisis and reach SDG 7, we have to have radical action, and change must happen now. There is no more waiting. The problem is immediate. Institutional action and individual responsibility can deliver such change, but only if we as individuals push it. Next slide, almost the last slide. Finally, we come to the last 2 chapters of the report. Chapter 8, co-authored by the International Lifeline Fund and Selco Foundation, on the practical recommendations on what we can do practically together as a sector. And Chapter 9, co-authored by UNHCR, on the direction of travel for the sector. I won't present all of the recommendations and practical advice here, but rather encourage you to read the beautiful executive summary that is on your tables and look at the reports online. But we hope those final 2 chapters are really practical ways forward. Last slide, thank you. I'd like to close by thanking our colleagues at the GPA and across the sector. Hajar and I did much of the writing, but it is really your hard work that is the foundation of the report. I feel just, oh my God, I'm going to cry. Incredibly lucky to work with such an important topic with such really amazing people. So thank you, and now Thomas can take over as I have a sob or a nilla.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. So moving on the base of representation of Dr. Sarah's recommendation, I just pointed out where you leave the practical learning, inclusive action. I think the panel is the right discussion where we can start. And I will start with the amazing, my friend, Julia Hanji. I would like to ask you, you are a refugee advocate and you are advocating for meaningful participation. And you are also trying to talk about the clean energy champion. Would you like to share what would meaningful participation of displacement look like with host communities in the efforts to reach the true meaning SDG 7? Please, over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you all, and thank you, Anila, for giving me this amazing opportunity to be one of the first respondents to the question. And I think talking about meaningful participation of the displaced community as well as the hosting communities, I think to me it means an holistic inclusion, and this inclusion includes refugees or displaced population as well as the community hosting them into the energy programming interventions. And I believe that there is a lot in terms of advantage when it comes to engaging refugees fully into the energy programming and intervention taking place in their space because of a lot of, let me say, contribution that they have or they can bring. And if I have just to highlight 2 main advantage, one is that we all, we can all agree with me that refugees, despite their status, they have capacity. They are able to support the sector. And aside from that, the key component is the experience that they gain throughout their journey in displacement. And this is something that it enables or allowed practitioners, energy practitioners, to understand the setup, to understand the context that they have, they're trying to address, or the solution they're trying to bring to address the refugee issues coming to accessing energy. And if we have a little bit to unpack the SDG 7 and look at the key terms that we have there, we have sustainability. And connecting sustainability to inclusion of refugees, I think it's really important, and it's really, I can highly recommend energy practitioners to consider shifting from just serving or helping refugees to leveraging their skills and also accommodate them into their programming, because it's just through that way that refugees can be able to take off and run the program or the intervention for down the line, like after years. And also, if we have to look at accessibility and affordability as well, we can imagine that there is no way a practitioner can respond or can bring a solution that can meet those two things if he doesn't have a good understanding of the context and the the experience in that area. That's why it's really important to bring refugees on board and also to engage them fully at each stage, including brainstorming of the program, implementation of it, monitoring and evaluation, because that's where resides the key of the success. And I think that is enough for me to respond to that question, and I'm happy to add more later on. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Moving on, I would like to go to Mr. Edison. And Mr. Edison, you are chair of Refugee Executive Committee in the Kikemi refugee camp, and you have been closely involved in the enabling energy access in your community. I would like to request you, what kind of support and resources do you think your community need to reaching energy access for all? So we have a translator for him because we really want to listen, so he's gonna translate for him.
Murakoze, ndabanza mbibwire, nitwa Munyakarambi Sebutoze Edizo, nkaba ndi impunzi y'umukongomani ibarizwa mu nkambi ya Kigeme mu karere ka Nyamagabe intara y'Amajyepfo.
Okay, thank you so much. First of all, let me introduce. I am Edizo Munyakarambi, a Congolese refugee based in Kigeme refugee camp in Southern Province.
Sangwe mu buzima busanzwe ndi president w'iyo nkambi.
I'm actually the Refugee Executive Committee President.
Mbere yuko njya ku kibazo bari bambajije munyemerere mbanze nshime.
First of all, let's start by thanking.
Ndabanza gushima Minema, ndabanza gushima HCR, by'umwihariko ngashimira Practical Action nkurikije ibikorwa ifite hariya mu nkambi ari by'ibi bikurikira. Hari imirasire yo mu nzu dukoresha, imirasire yo hanze, ibicanwa bigezweho, hakaba hariho business center, hakabaho no gutanga inguzanyo, inyungu ku nguzanyo hara mu nkambi.
I started by thanking Minema, Minister of Emergency, UNHCR and Practical Action for implementing different interventions in the camp, including solar home systems for households and small enterprises, clean cooking, and the powered solar community street light, and attached the two components, revolving fund and the productive use of energy.
Munyemerere rero ntabwo ari kubasubiza inyuma, nifuza ko ikibazo mwongera kugisubiramo nkagisubiza.
He is asking to repeat the question. That's okay. What I am telling him.
Yes, sure.
Murakoze cyane. Icyo mbona cyakorwa cya mbere ni ugutanga imirimo ibyara inyungu.
First of all, there should be income generating activities in the camp.
Kubera ko mu nkambi imirimo ni mikeya par rapport n'abantu bayirimo.
And income generating activities in the camp are still few considering the number of refugees.
Cya kabiri impunzi zifite ubushobozi bukeya bitewe n'uko bazishyize mu byiciro. Ubu turi mu byiciro bitatu, hari icyiciro kitabona n'amafaranga.
Secondly, the purchasing power of refugees is still few, is still low, and nowadays refugees have been categorized in three categories, and category 1, 2, and category 3, which does not get the something, which does not get money.
Ikindi, iyi mirasire turayishimiye, ariko twumvaga twifuza ko hagabanywa ibiciro.
Again, we are happy with the solar home systems, but we wish that the price should be reduced.
Ngihuje nuko nyine ubwo bushobozi ari bukeya, niyo mpamvu hagabanijwe ibiciro. Ibi bicanwa, iyi mirasire yagera kuri benshi, n'imbabura bikaba bityo, ndetse n'ibicanwa dukoresha.
Not only for solar home systems, but also for improved cook stoves, and their fuel could be reduced because, of course, of the point I mentioned, that the purchasing power of refugees is still low.
Ikindi twifuzaga ku bufatanye bwa HCR na Practical Action nuko bakongera amafaranga dukoresha y'ibicano.
Again, I would request that UNHCR to increase the money allocated to the fuel.
Kuko ukurikije ibihe turimo usanga amafaranga ari makeya. Ikindi ni ibikorwa remezo twifuza ko nabyo byakongerwa. Niyo dufite iyo center, business center imwe, habonetse irenze imwe, ebyiri, eshatu, byadufasha kurushaho tukagura imishinga.
I talked about productive use of energy, and to be better if the infrastructure can have more than one business center. This creates jobs to the refugees.
Ikindi twifuza kunoza imitangire ya serivisi. Ugize ikibazo ari umukiriya, yenda igikoresho kikangirika cyangwa se kikibwa, akaba afite abantu bamuri hafi kugira ngo ataza gucika intege.
Yeah, we got solar home systems, we got improved cook stoves, and it's also recommended that after sales services should be better for the sustainability of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Mr. Edison.
Ikindi ni kimwe gisigaye, ni ibiganiro n'amahugurwa kugira ngo abo hanze n'abo mu nkambi barusheho gusobanukirwa imikorere ya Practical Action.
Yeah, the last is about capacity building and awareness creations.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Murakoze.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for translating this. Thank you so much. Research has very important component in building our future plan. So my guest panelist, I would like to know, David Kinzuzi, your research is focused on climate change and its socio-economic impacts on the displaced communities, and you have practically experience of delivering sustainable solution. So would you like to share more about what more needs to be done to move on climate action, and how can energy play a role? What can we learn actually from ongoing efforts?
Yes, thanks a lot. And I would like to also thank Sarah for giving me the opportunity. As I was going through the question earlier before, I reflected on the interview we had. And just one simple thing on how energy plays a huge role in terms of like social economic impact in displaced settings. It's right now we are here. You guys couldn't have heard me if there was no energy to use the mic, right? So that's really important. We are having people who are following online. We were able to collaborate and write the report from various locations online because we had access to energy. So this really shows how much important energy is really if we're trying to advance people in displacement settings. So around what can we do better? I think for me, he mentioned it around cohesion between host communities and as well as the displaced people themselves, right? You need to make sure that there is that social cohesion and they're able to support each other. The second thing as well, my friend Joel said, is that let's put the people affected at the forefront, right? They are innovators, they have proximity around the problem, and if we are able to put them and not see them as beneficiaries only, we're able to find really meaningful and sustainable solutions. One of the things, at my current work, what I do is I do the research, but I also support displaced communities to access higher education. The biggest thing I do is a shift in mentality on them being takers and being givers, right? So when you live in your camp your whole life, you're basically used as taking, and they never give you the opportunity of giving, actually. So we really need to make sure that when we talk about inclusivity, let's put them at the forefront and make sure that they're actually contributing and giving. And that's the only way we're going to be able to find human-centered design solutions that are able to last longer, as opposed to bringing external people and make them find solutions for the people, right? And then what can we learn from ongoing solutions? Sarah also mentioned that only over 94% of displaced people don't have access to energy. We are not doing as much as we can. We can do better. And I think the first thing to start off is making sure we're investing in research, and not only in research from external people, but putting displaced communities at the forefront of the research. They understand their community way better. They have the experience that, in as much as someone external who has studies can never be able to get, because they just didn't have that lived experience, right? So making sure that we're investing in innovation centers at the displaced communities, and making sure that these people are being able to learn and being given the opportunity to be able to contribute. And then lastly, I think when you talk about displacement settings, we always forget internally displaced people. And I think during my research, I really focus a lot on making sure that we highlight internal displacement, because even the UN says that by 2060, we're going to be having over 50 million internal displacement due to climate change. So we need to make sure that we put them also at the forefront. And when you think about displacement, let's not only think about external displacement where I move from one country to another. I can move from one region to another, and the situation is going to be very precarious if they don't support me. So that's what I would say. I think, just to summarize, let us put the displaced people at the forefront, make sure that we use the innovation and creativity to come up with sustainable solutions. And then the other thing is just making sure that we are investing more, putting up more resources. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Give him a big hand. Our next panelist, when I was reading about this question, I thought it's very important if we could highlight, pinpoint the right question, we could bring right answer. So I come to you, Mr. Rob. You are working, and we would like to learn from you. What aspect of energy access do we collectively overlook? And we are doing this again and again. What do you think they are overlooked, and why?
Thanks very much for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's better. Thanks very much for the question. Thanks to GPA for organising this event and inviting me along. I found it incredibly insightful today. But the most insightful thing that I have as a donor is to listen to the voices of refugees in the room, which I think is the nub of answering that question. So I work in FCDO, previously DFID, and I've been doing development for 20 years now. And I've been an infrastructure advisor, but more specifically I've come back after several years of being overseas in fragile and conflict-affected states, seeing the rise in the numbers of refugees to a level that is quite incomprehensible a decade ago, but nonetheless here we are. And I've come back to the centre looking at sort of energy innovation and what needs to work. I'm going to take us to a low a little bit by saying I think it's really important to acknowledge what went wrong in some of that period, in some of that last decade. And I would frame it as this, from my own personal experiences, that I worked in Afghanistan and in Jordan, with Syria in mind. And it disheartened me this morning, to hear Owen, talking about 2014 statistics on, and I know there are geopolitics involved in this, but it disheartens me to see that gap widening. It disheartens me also, I think, that when Damilola said this morning, actually we are not on track for 2030 on SDG 7.1, that sometimes I think the way bilaterals work, where we worked on in COP27, that some of our ambitions on 2050 or 2070 somehow dilute the 2030 ambition. I will be quick, but there is a positive side. In 2018, I work on the MEX program, the Modern Energy Cooking Services program. I also lead on low energy inclusive appliances, and I'm responsible for the sustainable energy and leave no one behind component within the Transforming Energy Access program. So we've got lots of programs, but what we have to do is something that's really, really transformative. And I see that any clean energy and transition should reduce vulnerability. It should increase choice. It's got to come from the human perspective. And I think dignity, as Andrew put it this morning, and has been alluded to just now, is at the heart of that. If we don't get that right, if we put profit first, we've got a problem, we will fail. I genuinely believe that. Skipping very quickly, I think there are some innovations that we can bring about to close that gap. And if I can say, that if we talk about fuels in isolation, I think we've got a little bit of a problem. Maybe the renewables plus agenda is to look at hybrid solutions, hybrid renewable solutions that may work. And just as an aside, being committed to that transformation, I'm delighted that we will be working with GPA on the humanitarian part of the Leave No One Behind agenda, and I'm really glad to be partnering with you, on that long but worthy mission, transformational mission. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, leaving no one behind, and this requires encouragement and acknowledgement. By saying this, I would like to go to my last panelist, Harriet. You have amazing award, Energy Award from ASIN, and is a quite well-known prize for innovation in humanitarian energy. We would like to know, what is your impression? What kind of innovation are needed to improve the situation at large scale?
Well, thanks so much. Can you hear me?
No, you need to press it.
Can you hear me at the back? But at the back, no, they're not waving, so I think the answer's no.
You can take this.
Yes,
Okay,
you can
good.
hear me.
Okay,
Good. Thank you so much. Well, and thank you. This is the third year at Ashton that we've done an award focusing particularly on energy access in humanitarian settings. And I want to really thank many people in this room, including Sarah and Owen and Joel, who really pushed us and encouraged us to have these awards. And from the beginning, we've honestly been blown away by the response we've had from organizations right throughout the world, run by refugees, working with refugees and host communities, showing that the solutions, including the transformative solutions, are out there. And so I think it is doable because the innovation is phenomenal. Refugees, whether in camps or whether among host communities, are just bursting with innovative new ideas. And I think the innovation, it's not about tech. The innovation is about ways of working. It's about the inclusive business models that will make these initiatives sustainable and will involve women and young people and put them at the heart of the initiatives. And so I think we've really seen so many organizations really pushing at the barriers to do that, and including this year when we really said we wanted community-led grassroots initiatives to come forward with their ideas. And in particular, we saw how people are really putting the focus on tackling the need for skills and training, and that then, through energy, can help increase people's livelihoods and jobs. And as you may know, for every one job that's created directly in distributed energy, 5 more jobs are created by enabling other people in the community to run their businesses. So it's absolutely doable, and it can be really positive, not only for refugees, but also for the host countries. So what will it take, though? What would it take to scale up all these amazing initiatives? Obviously, it takes the whole ecosystem shifting. And I think this report does a brilliant job in laying out the different public-private partnerships it takes, the government policy, the partnerships from all of us to help make that shift. And that includes breaking out of the UN, the humanitarian bubble. It includes making sure that access to energy for refugees is absolutely part of the mainstream energy access debate, which we will all be having over the coming few days. And I thought one of the kind of things for policy nerds to get their head around, and I was struggling with coming out of this report, is, but I think at least 1 in every 8 people without access to energy is from a refugee community. That's about as major a community as you could wish for. And so we absolutely have to be at the heart of those debates about energy access. And that includes making sure that the finance is flowing. And in a report that was full of very shocking figures and very sobering figures, has been highlighted, I thought there was one that was actually quite optimistic, which is that to reach all refugees with access to energy will take $10 billion by 2030. $10 billion, guys, that's not much. In the scheme of some of the donor pockets, in the scheme of the pockets of foundations and philanthropy and corporates, come on, we can get to 10 billion. And with that 10 billion, we can help galvanize the grassroots initiatives, in particular by breaking the sums down into the manageable chunks that the communities want. Too often, people say when they ask for finance, they get asked, well, we're going to be sending you a shiny new bulldozer in 5 years. And they're saying, no, we need millions of pliers, and we need them now. And so it's making sure that we break down the finance so that those community grassroots initiatives can continue to thrive.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is end of our panel discussion, but this is not the end of our work. I really want all you to give a big hand to our amazing panelists. Thank you so much. And by saying this, I hand over to you so you can announce your award winner. And we are really excited. And I request my panelists, rest panelists, they can go back to their seats. And over to you.
So, hello everybody. What a fantastic day we've had. And thank you so much. Dismas, come and join me. I am absolutely thrilled to announce now the Ashton Awards 2022 shortlists for our 3 international awards. So any minute now, I'm sure the first slide will come up. But for those of you who many people know and love awards. And as I was getting on the plane to come here, everybody in Europe was tuned into their televisions and voting for one particular award called the Eurovision Song Contest. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. Yes, you were too, yes. And Ukraine won, which I think is very interesting. They won the public vote. And Dismas tells me that maybe not everyone here knows Eurovision Song Contest, strangely, but that in Africa we have idols on the television that excites about as much interest, I think, isn't it, Dismas? And I was thinking, how cool if in a few years' time we could have refugee idols for energy on the television, watched by millions of people across Africa. And what a great chance that would be. As Owen said, we need to celebrate all that we've achieved. We need to remind ourselves of all that's left to be achieved, but we need to celebrate the amazing refugee idols who are showing the way forward. So if we could move to the next slide, please. Now, for this, as you also know in awards, absolutely key is to have some drums. So I did try to find some drums, but unfortunately the hotel said I had to hire an entire band for the entire evening. So that would have made for a good party, but I thought it was a bit out of budget. So I'm going to rely on you guys now to do, I think this will help make Thomas feel at home. Yay! Great! Drum roll, yes! Next slide, please. And I'm so happy, we've lost the slides, to be, I'm so happy to be announcing these awards today together with Dismas Kasulu, who some of you will have heard earlier on the panel, and who was winner of the Humanitarian Energy Award 2021 last year, and so for his brilliant work with Solar Freeze. So we're really thrilled to be together doing this big announcement. If we can move to the next slide, please. And we're revealing the shortlist for 3 awards, and I have to say, hundreds of people get in touch with us, and we don't want people wasting their time, so we go through a first initial process, and we got it down to 157 applicants from across the world who met our quite tough and rigorous criteria. And I have to say that here we are in Kigali. I think Africa could be feeling a little bit smug that out of the 11 organizations on the shortlist, 8 of them are from Africa. Woo-hoo! Indeed. Yes. And all of those who are on the shortlist have already been through a rigorous process, with our team asking them hundreds of difficult and annoying questions. I don't know, what do you think, Dismas? Was it quite tough?
It's a very tough exercise.
So I think those who've reached the shortlist can be very proud of what they've done. And the 3 awards that we're going to announce all have a focus, of course, on access to energy, and the highlight will be when Dismas announced the one for refugee livelihood. So, okay, drum roll, guys, and we move to the, oh, that was the right slide, the Ashton Awards 2022 for Energising Agriculture. And okay, that's enough drums. And I'm glad you're getting so in the spirit of it. And the 4 organisations who've made the shortlist are Soko Fresh Agri-Innovation, who are based here in Kenya. You can. And I have to say, are watching online and will be at the forum tomorrow, so look out for them. Also watching online and at the forum is Mandalis from Uganda, who also, I have to say, Mandalis also work with refugees, so I think particularly interesting for all of us here. And then we have 2 in the shortlist from India, Orja Development Initiatives, who work particularly with smallholder farmers, and the collectives for integrated livelihood initiatives, who work especially with tribal people in India. So, a huge round of applause for the... Okay, back to your favourite part of the day, I can tell, the drum roll. Go for the drum roll as we move to the next slide, please. And the next slide, please, is to announce the 2022 Ashton Award for Energy Access Skills. And, yep, it's a clean sweep for Africa this time. Among those, we have the brilliant work of energy generation in Togo, where they've really reached out to train women, enabling them to become the entrepreneurs and the engineers of the solar revolution. We have, oh yes, we have Zonful Energy in Zimbabwe, where again it's really about reaching out to rural young people and training them, and then they have an app that's a bit like Uber that helps you find a job. How cool is that? Then we have a brilliant initiative from Community Energy Malawi. Oh, I'm thinking maybe they're here. How fantastic. And I have to say, I love this example because they were inspired by community energy groups in Scotland. And then they've set up rural mini-grids in Malawi. So a fantastic example, again, very focused on training local people. And the last of this award is Energo in Uganda, where they're really helping the demand side that was mentioned earlier. And amazingly, the people they work with have a nearly 70% increase in their incomes as a result of having access to energy. So what a great shortlist. And moving on with the drum roll and the next slide. I am absolutely biggest drum roll of all as I hand over to Dismas.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So, as a past winner of the Ashden Award, I recognize that the Humanitarian Award means it's very big and it's very heavy because it's work by refugees, for refugees, and with refugees. So this year we have a shortlist of 3 amazing projects across Turkey, Kenya, and Uganda. So the first shortlist goes to a major initiative based in Turkey. What they are doing is training women to be technical engineers in the field of renewable energy. And on top of this, they provide support in terms of childcare, language skills, health, and well-being. Give it up for them. The second shortlisted candidates are Kakuma Ventures, based in Kenya. Yeah. They are creating clean energy, internet connections, and new jobs for refugees through 6 Wi-Fi hotspots that are creating freelance jobs and enabling refugees to access internet wherever they are to work in the new economy. Give it up for them as well. And the final one is Power Trust Uganda. And what they are doing is really interesting. They are providing business hubs that are powered by renewable energy, where businesses such as hairdressers, food processors can have a chance to access these hubs and create more income for them. Thank you so much, and this is going to be a very tough job for the, for the judges.
Well, brilliant, Dismas. As you said, amazing, amazing. And indeed, it's going to be a tough job for our very brilliant panel of judges, which includes many of the experts and refugees who are here today for this conference. And they're going to be going through to choose the 3 overall winners of the 3 international awards, which we will be announcing in Nairobi in October. So, a date for your... Go on, Dismas.
Yeah, so mark that date if you're in Nairobi. Please attend the event and mark that calendar. We look forward to seeing you, and please tell us your favorite.
And then, following that announcement in Nairobi, we feel it's absolutely critical. This is the run-up to COP27 in Egypt, the Africa COP. This is our chance also to really put the spotlight at the COP within the climate talks on the outstanding innovation among refugee communities to help bring access to energy and to help generate those jobs and livelihoods that are so badly needed and to which they can contribute so much right across Africa and beyond. And we'll be going there with those solutions and arguing also for some of those finances and those policies that we were discussing earlier. What if some of the 100 billion that rich countries committed to tackle the climate crisis could also be devoted to helping tackle energy access, including among refugees, and releasing all their potential? So thank you very much, and we look forward to celebrating with you then.
Thank you so much. Wow, what energy. I wish I could be as shortlisted. Yes, thank you so much. Wow, I can't believe we almost done. How is the energy in the room? Woo! Good. Wow, I'm feeling so overloaded with so much information. Some points when I was heading in a track A, the panelists, they were talking about little bit complicated terms which was difficult for me to understand, but it connect because they were talking about solution. They were talking about how we can bring systematic solution, how we can make not mistakes which we have done. This COVID gave us so much which we lost. And this moment right now, thanks to GPA and all our partners, we are reconnecting to rethink how we can go beyond these kind of barriers. In our session, we talk about what is energy. And in our panel, they said energy is education, energy is health, energy is how to connect with the other as a human. In our session, we talk about what kind of flexible financial requirement we need, because it's required investment. We can't sustain. If we imagine, if we don't have an investment, we can't bring all of you here, right? So we really need partners who can invest and work with us. We really need to think the perspective, the different culture. We really need to think in humanitarian action, what and why we are doing. We are doing for the people who are women, who are children, who are older, who are coming from different background. We really need to understand their perspective and need to give them opportunity and access so they can even understand what these opportunities are. So I really have a big hope, and I'm giving by saying that we are talking about to come together, to complement each other and work together for the future we really want for our generation. Thank you, and over to you, Thomas.
Thank you, Anila. I'm surprised to see this level of energy after 10 hours watching 300, Amy, how many? 380 slides we showed today. I need some humanitarian energy drinks soon, but can we pull up the slides, because I want to tell you what's next, because we think this is the beginning, right? This is just not just a conference, this is really a reshape of our family, bring them together, and also thinking about what are the next steps coming up. And we heard COP from Harriet already. Just to give you, I'm not advocating for going to conferences for the conference sake, but we feel it's always good to have some milestones, and I want to mention these milestones. So you will get, obviously, a report about this meeting, you will get the recordings of the sessions, so those sessions you missed, you can watch after. You can watch them 20 times in the next couple of weeks, so really you can get every essence of each session. And we will also prepare, as I mentioned in the room, a sort of concrete set of action points out of this conference. We will include this into our GPA work plan. We will go through this with our GPA steering group. We will then discuss how do we take this further, and we obviously keep you informed about this. In terms of milestones, as you can see, or as Harriet already mentioned, the Africa COP in Egypt is coming up in November. And in the last session in Chatham House, we actually promised each other to bring refugees in each session at COP that we as a collective are organizing. And I think I would like to promote this promise again in this room and make sure whatever we do online or offline, in person or virtual, let's bring at least one refugee representative or displaced people representative into these sessions to hear their voices, same as we do with the youth, for example. Then the next milestone is end of 2023, so in a year and a half. And I would say the biggest milestone for UNHCR is the Global Refugee Forum. Those for you who are not familiar with this process, it happens every 4 years. This year was a step in between, so the next one is 23, end of 23, and here we have a chance to promote this topic again in Geneva on a very high level, correct me if it's not Geneva, Andrew, but on a very high level. And we also see interest from the donor community, for example, to come up with a joint pledge. So this is an opportunity again for us as a collective to come up with ideas, to ask for some concrete help, and send this over to the donor community and ask for support in collaboration always with the host communities. And this will give us a chance in a year and a half again to take stock where we are. Always in the back of our head, we have the big goal, which is by 2030, all displaced people should have access, like everybody else, to clean energy solutions and affordable energy solutions. Okay, I think that's almost the last slide. Thank you. Please stay connected. Many of you are very close to us, others may be very new to this topic. You can see all the various online formats we're offering. We have our website, humanitarianenergy.com. We have our Twitter account, subscribe to our newsletter. We have, I think this is something we will promote even further now, the LinkedIn group. You can get if you're looking for a job, you can get one every week. So we have plenty of opportunities on this website, on this LinkedIn group. Our general email address is energy.unitar.org. And obviously reach out if you have our email addresses as well already. Now, time to thank. It sounds a little bit like Oscar award here. So first of all, I'd like to thank our co-hosts for today, and I'd like to give a big round of applause to the team of Practical Action and MOCAP. Second, obviously, I would like to repeat thanks to the German Foreign Office for their support for the conference and also for the Norwegian government. Then, may I ask for a big round of applause for the GPA team, for the tireless working people. And not only for those in the room, but also we have colleagues online, Elif, Jonathan, Ariel, Hajar, Christina, Paola, everybody who's working in the background trying to monitor the online platform. They also have done an amazing job. Finally, big thanks to Anila for doing this together with me. And last but not least, thanks to all of you. Yeah. Thanks to all the refugee participants, everybody who's coming here or came here today in person or online. Mark said this morning, if this group of people can't make it, nobody can. And you have 8 more years, so no pressure. Do your best, and please do it together with the people we serve. Thank you very much. And now there's only one last moment between you and the drinks, and this is the great representative from the German embassy here. Mr. Primus? Yeah, here he is. Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels almost like Oscar. Hollywood, yeah, but I didn't do a film, so it's just Kigali here. Welcome to everybody, distinguished guests from abroad. Unfortunately, the ambassador, my colleague Thomas Kurz, couldn't make it on short notice, so he asked me to represent him. And many things were already spoken. I hope you had a successful, fruitful day, and you could also listen to our Secretary of State for Climate Protection, Mrs. Morgan, in the morning. Germany promotes a holistic multi-stakeholder approach providing sustainable, clean and efficient energy solutions for both refugees and host communities as well as for the humanitarian infrastructure. We encourage partners to include displaced populations in national policies and to implement innovative projects in displacement and host community settings. Germany is supporting the implementation of the GPA through its different energy access development programs. The Emerging Development Program with its various activities in displacement settings and the project Energy Solutions for Displacement Settings, working closely with UNHCR in Uganda, Kenya and Ethiopia, integrated into the global program supporting UNHCR implementing the Global Compact on Refugees. Germany is also supporting the innovative UNHCR Green Fund, a guarantee mechanism that will allow UNHCR to contract renewable energy providers for 10 UNHCR sites located also in Kenya, Ethiopia and Uganda and also other countries. We also co-funded in the past time UNITAR Global Plan for Action, which for the first time systematically connected humanitarian assistance and renewable energy in displacement situations. The GPA recommendations were input to the Global Compact on Refugees and hence an important contribution to the achievement of SDG 7. As a follow-up, we also supported a pilot project at one of the UNHCR camps in Djibouti. Long story short, Germany believes that this is a very important topic. Let me congratulate the team of the GPA coordination unit at UNITAR in Geneva for their tireless efforts in promoting this important and ecologically and economically logical goal. Our government will continue to support you in these valuable endeavors. Finally, let me congratulate you on the launch of the first State of the Humanitarian Energy Sector report on how to raise ambitions to ensure that refugees, migrants, asylum seekers and internally displaced people are not left behind in the clean energy transition. This is another important step to ensure that this vulnerable group and associated humanitarian response mechanisms have access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy service by 2030. Enjoy the evening and I hope we see us soon and your endeavor goes on with great success. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Drinks are outside.